In the world we live in today, we are bombarded with so much noise. Like, we have our phones, we have our notifications, we have computers, we have Netflix, we have all these other streaming platforms, we have this video right here. And I want to let you know that these videos are great. Don't get me wrong, they are fantastic. At the same time, spending time by yourself, spending time alone, spending time out in nature, spending time on walks, spending time where you don't have external noises, and most of the I have a feeling at this point are getting better at doing this, but there's a lot of other people that cannot sit in a room for more than 5 minutes alone without having to have some type of distraction. I myself always sit like at night and I'll meditate for 20, 30 minutes or so. Sometimes I'll go on walks. Most of the time I'll go on walks. I won't listen to anything and I'll just go on a walk just to go on a walk, or I'll just go on a run just to go on a run. Not to listen to anything. Before I would always listen to things at the gym or going to these different places. And I've come to realize that sometimes just like being in the river like you see right now on screen is one of the best things to do, and just going out in nature and just like being there and present and like letting these things come to you in the best ways that they can, while also at the same time like learning and listening to other things. There's a paradox. You have to still learn and study, but then you have to also give yourself time to like reflect and think about these things that had happened. And if you don't give yourself time to reflect, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to have all these different feelings. You're not going to know where to go or what to do. And that's always one of the problems. And if you're new here, by the way, you can subscribe to the channel, because this channel is dedicated to helping you make more money, communicate better, have more confidence, go out into the real world, still watch anime, enjoy your life, but also at the same time be able to have a good equal balance to what is happening to you in your world. So if that's something you're interested in, like I said, sub to the channel. With that being said, I wanted to talk about silence, because I have spent very many years being alone, having quiet, having peace. Like, I would go on hikes where I'd just be out in the middle of nature with the rocks, and I'd just be there and I'd just be sitting and I'd meditate, and I wouldn't always have music or audio or anything like that. And people that have music or audio on hiking trails or out in nature, don't be one of those people. Just don't be one of those people. Listen to the noise that's happening around you. Listen to the birds, listen to the streams, listen to the wind, listen to the sounds that are happening to you, because those are going to be the most impactful sounds. And you might be like, I don't want to listen to those sounds. But like, if you think about it, like, nature is always speaking. Everything's always speaking to you in the ways that it needs to be spoken to you in. And then you get to be the one that identifies what you do with that said experience that you had when it was speaking to you in that said time. A lot of us, we don't always like give ourselves the ability to sit in silence, to sit in our own thoughts, because we're worried of what's going to come up. We're worried about the emotions that we're going to feel. We're worried about the depths that we're going to go to. Trust me, I've been more worried than you've ever been worried as well too, because like, I would go to these depths. I never wanted to have like super, like I wanted moments of quiet, but it was like moments of quiet so that I could focus on my breath. I never really went anywhere else. And then I started to go to those other places and feel those emotions and like be willing to feel the things that I needed to feel. And I was like, wow, this is freeing. I love being able to feel these things. I love being able to experience my wide range of emotions. I love being able to cry. I love being able to feel the highs, the lows, the joys, the sadness, the quote unquote, it wasn't ever really depression, but like, I just loved being able to experience those highs and lows that I never knew I could experience. I would experience them on like a run or a walk or a bike ride or something like that. Like, me being able to climb up to the top of a mountain on a bike was incredible. And then I would just like sit up at the top of the mountain, and there'd be this like moment of stillness. Or even just like in the other day when I was at the sauna, I was sitting there and I just knew and I just felt there was this moment of silence. So like, the silence doesn't always have to happen in nature. It can happen like at the gym, or it can happen like when you're at a family event or something along those lines. But there's just this moment where I was like, okay, nothing needs to be said. And I didn't say anything. I was just like, I just sat within that peace, within that quiet, within that eternal now. And it was so freeing. It was so wonderful. It was so great. And there's always this feeling of like, okay, I want to do this again. I want to do this again. I want to do this again. And you can always do it whenever you need to do it. Sometimes it might not be to the same intensity. Sometimes it will be. It just kind of depends on where you're at and the mental state that you're in, and why I highly recommend being able to sit with yourself. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, start small and then build your way up. Because like, you can lay in the river, you can lay in the shower. I know I myself have like just like laid in the bathtub, and like having my ears covered with water and like being able to listen to my heartbeat or my lungs breathe is a very cool experience, because like those things are happening automatically without my cognizant awareness of that said thing. Like, if we think about it, the heart is always beating even when we're sleeping. The lungs are always breathing even when we aren't like being aware of the breath. It's always happening whenever we're sleeping, whenever we're walking, whenever we're eating, wherever we're at. It's an autonomous system that's always happening all the time without our conscious awareness. The things that we do have to be conscious of is like our ability to create, our ability to speak, our ability to write. Like, even though at that time our neurons in our brains are also just firing in the ways that they need to be firing so that they create the message that we need to have at that said time, because they're dwelling on different information, because we don't even know how the brain is actually working or how it is conceived. Yet at the same time, we can kind of tailor it in different ways by acquiring new information and having different conversations with different people and going out into nature and sitting in the silence. And by doing so, all of a sudden you're going to get these different experiences, these different thoughts, these different ideas that you didn't originally have in the first place. And then you're just going to go out and you're maybe going to pick up an apprentice, or you're going to figure out like, oh, hey, I can be a nicer person, or hey, I want to learn about this more. I want to learn about this person. I want to have different experiences that I had never had beforehand. And in doing so, it's like, oh, wow, this whole new world opened up. This world that I never knew existed is now like becoming into my existence. But like if you didn't take time to be in that silence, to be alone, to self-reflect on yourself, because most people that I know are very unaware of their own self-reflection. At least that's what I picked up on from a lot of other people that I do talk with. Some people, yes, they are aware. Some people, they aren't aware. Maybe thinking that you're self-aware means that you're not aware. There's this whole paradox that could go along with that. But also at the same time, like if you do sit alone, and if you do think, and if you are in the present moment a lot of the times, because the present is the only moment that there ever is, will also identifying that you have everything that you've ever wanted, then you can start to create and go to the places that you need to go to. Because maybe you've been like me where you've been paralyzed and you're like, I want to go do this thing, but like I don't want to go outside because I'm afraid of what will happen. And that's where I'm like, I have physically had to like pull myself outside to go do that said thing. Like there would be a time when I was like wanting to be in the silence, and I was smoking some of the Mary J type of stuff, and I enjoyed it. It was great. And I was like, I am freaking out right now. I'm having a panic attack. I'm having all these different thoughts that I don't want to be having. I'm like, I want to go outside, but I'm like, I'm terrified to go outside. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put on my shoes, not even wear socks, and I'm going to go for a run. And I just ended up doing that. And I went for a run, and I ran out in like 36-degree weather or something like that. It felt great. I ran for a couple of miles, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. It's amazing. It was the exact thing that I needed to do. Or there's been times where I'm like, I'd like to go on a bike ride. I'd like to do this said thing, but I'm like, what is this other person going to think? And I'm like, well, this other person isn't even there. What do I want to do? What do I want to create? What do I want to experience? Where do I want to go? And once I figured that out, it's like, oh, this is great. And you might be like, well, then you're just prioritizing yourself. And I'd be like, yeah, I am, because I am the first person that I have to prioritize, just as you are the first person that you have to prioritize. You can't put on somebody else's mask first. You have to put on your own mask. You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. If you can't take care of yourself, how do you expect to take care of anybody else? And this is where the whole codependency comes in. And like, you don't want to be a codependent person. You want to be able to go out into nature. You want to be able to do things on your own, because like you have to spend the rest of your life with yourself. If you can't even look at yourself in the mirror, how do you expect to spend time with yourself? And I did a video on this maybe a couple weeks ago. I kind of touched on it just slightly, but like there's people, and to me, this is just, it baffles me. Like they can't look at themselves in the mirror. I'm like, okay, well, where is that coming from? It's like there's this disgust, there's this like feeling of like I'm not amounting to my said potential or whatever it may be. And that's where I'd be like, okay, well, maybe it's because like you're living for somebody else and you're not living for yourself. If you start living for yourself, then in all likelihood you'll have no problem looking at yourself in the mirror. You'll be able to identify, you'll be able to look at yourself, you'll be able to entertain yourself, and like just look deeply in the mirror. This is one of those quiet techniques that I highly recommend you do, is you look in front of a mirror and just stare at yourself. Like just look at the eyes. Like if you have thoughts that come up, like you have thoughts that come up. Or you could just be like, I'm just going to look at you and I'm just going to stare at you, and whatever comes up is the thing that comes up, and I'm going to address this thing regardless of what it may be. Like I've looked at myself when I've been weeping. I've looked at myself when I've been not weeping. I've looked at myself when I've had highs, when I've had lows. Like I've looked at myself and just sat in that silence. And it's great because all these messages, all these different ideas come, or it's just like I get to be in the present and I just get to feel that stillness, that quiet that's always surrounding us at every point and everywhere that we go. So if you're wanting to have more silence, if you're wanting to have more growth, if you're wanting to have more inspiration, or if you're just wanting to understand like ways to enjoy the silence in a new way that you've never enjoyed it in, I do offer one-on-one coaching for anybody that is interested. It's linked down in the description. If you want to join, cool. If not, no worries. I just want to toss it out there because we have to be reminded a lot more than we need to be taught. So I myself am always sitting in silence. I myself am always enjoying the present moment. I myself am always going back and reanalyzing the day if I have to. I'm also just feeling the water, the noises, the sensations of my fingers, whatever it may be, to identify that, yes, this is the present moment. This is where we are at. Because too many times we'll be laying in bed or we'll be sitting somewhere and we'll be thinking about all these different things that we don't need to be thinking about, instead of just enjoying the quiet moment that is around us every single time, every place that we go. And once you're able to enjoy and bask in the silence, your life is going to change in new ways that you never even expected it to.